singer-songwriters that were actually living an experience while reciting. Well, it's not reciting because that gives the idea of an act. It was living the experience, performing the experience while reliving it.
Like a Johnny Cash.
And when that happened, there was a magic, because it gave us this opportunity to kind of peek into someone's home. And if you lived in England ever in your life, or you lived in certain places in Italy, certainly in Europe, as you're walking down the road, you can actually peer in someone's home. London is big on this, because there's homes below. You can actually see people living their life below the road level. Like, you can see it. And that kind of voyeuristic idea, where you sort of jump into that just for a second, just to take a minute to what's going on there, is interesting to watch. It's very interesting to watch. You know, you could watch someone effectively for hours just doing regular household things when they don't know you're watching, right? Because it's the anticipation of what's coming next. What do I get to see, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
sure.
Much like acting, you know, we step into that life and we perform. People like to watch because they want to see what happens next. They don't even need to say anything. Singer-songwriters, same thing. They're on a stage. When they're performing, again, performing is not a good word. When they're reliving that experience, and you could see them, they're living the experience through pictures in their mind, and they're performing from within. That becomes an incredible performance on the outside without the need to, perform to the crowd, to be performative. You don't need to be performative. You need to live an experience and relive that experience.
We're welcoming Antonio Cupo to the show. Antonio was born in Vancouver. He spent his early years as a stage performer. He has interests in psychology and acting, and he enrolled at the University of British Columbia, earning a bachelor's degree while beginning his career as an actor. He later moved to LA, offered many opportunities in film and TV, from Steven Spielberg to James Cameron. He later went on to star in a popular TV series for Mediaset Italia called Elisa di Rivombrosa, also known as the most watched TV series in the history of Italian television. We can go on and on here about your theater experience as well. So 135 show tour in Rodgers and Hammerstein's musical Cinderella, playing the charming prince, and shot the world champion. Nice. I'm thinking Mike Tyson right now, because I just saw a clip of him. A world campaign for Rolex with award-winning film director Joe Carnahan, The Grey. He moved back to North America to star in TV series Bomb Girls alongside Meg Tilly, and Ice with Donald Sutherland. He recently co-starred 10 episodes of the CBS series Blood and Treasure, and produced movies A Brush with Love and Love Under the Olive Tree for Crown Media. Over the past 8 years, he's forged a new path as an executive producer under his company Province Pictures Inc., developing a slate of movies and taking them from inception to final delivery. In addition to producing movies it owns, Province Pictures is also responsible for financing, tax credits, and sales for other companies and producers that seek to collaborate on high-quality projects shooting in Canada. Welcome to the show, Antonio.
Thank you. I feel like after that intro, I've got to go back and fact check some of that and make sure that it's all still true and correct to the best of my knowledage. But
unfortunately, I didn't fact check it. So yeah.
No, it's all true. It's all true. It's amazing though, like how much changes, like in when you look back 20 years, and if 20 years ago I wouldn't have said, where or what I would have been doing 20 years from then. But looking at all of that now, I just go, wow, it's just, everything just got a little bit more complex and harder as the years went on. But more interesting and with greater depth. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know if that's the next 20 years, quite honestly, if I think about it. You know what I mean? I almost feel like maybe it's time to go the other way again.
Well, okay. Oh, that's 2 points I really wanted to go on. So number one is we like to talk to people about what they think or what they believe and what they feel about what's beyond their time right now. And then number two, going back. So there, you had two things that you shared with me the last time we chatted on kind of both those themes generally. Why don't we start on one? Your dad, you said that at 10 or 12 years old, you told your dad when he asked you what you want to do with your life, you said, I want to work with my hands. And he said to you, you're not good with your hands.
It turned out to be true,
there's a reason
actually.
why you remember.
Yeah, no, there's a reason why I remember, but there's also, like now as a father, and you would have the same, you have two young kids as well. So, imagine that it's similar for you. You kind of know your kid even before they really know themselves. Like you were there at the day of their birth. You saw every iteration of that child, effectively every tantrum, every friendship they've ever made. You know how they react and how they behave in certain scenarios. And, my family is a family of immigrants, like many Italian Canadians, Italian Americans as well. I'm first generation. So it was all about work. It was like, if you didn't work, you were considered like useless. So at a young age, that my dad would always be doing construction projects around the house and tearing walls down and doing stuff in the garden, and we were expected to help, and we were expected to help not in a way that an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old might work. It was, you were expected to work like you were getting paid and you were 50, or 40. You know what I mean? Like you were expected to do things correctly. And my brother actually fell in those footsteps really quite well. And everything with his hands, he does really, really well. I was handed the broom for a lot of the time. So we'll just sweep, you know what I mean?
You're the manual labor.
Yeah. And it's funny because like even today, I kind of, if you ask me to like, tear some stuff down, I'm really good at destruction. I can break stuff.
Sure. Well,
now,
that's more fun.
Yeah, with rebuilding it, I can do it. I'm a YouTube builder,
Sure.
so I'll look it up on YouTube first. I'll figure it out, and then I'll realize I'll be like, none of this is rocket science, okay? But I think what the idea there behind my dad's comment was, in a very sort of Italian way, it's not necessarily that I wasn't good with my hands. He recognized that my brain would have been better served in other places. And sometimes Italians, when they say things, they really mean to say the thing that, you might say to your son today,
Sure.
but
Sure.
back in the day, the things that were said were a little bit, had more of an edge, and they bit a little harder.
They cut to the bone. Yeah. They cut to the bone,
yeah. Right? Yeah. But that was the beauty of growing up in the 70s and 80s is nothing was candy coated. So you didn't wake up one day and have this expectation that someone was going to hand you something.
You said to me one of the parting comments that you shared with me, a quote. I think it was something that you learned from your dad. It sounded like it, at least. You said one of the best things that you remember and that you keep in mind is literally the quote: "Save the bullshit for somebody else."
Yeah. These are words that I now live by. It's funny. And I think why we got onto that is my time in university. University was very, of course, the university professors couldn't wait to impart their, unlimited wisdom upon their students. And I brought home a bunch of ideas from university. And I was, as many young university students want to debate right away as soon as they learn something new. It's they want to get into, lock horns with you and, impart all of their brand new knowledge. And I would come home with these ideas that were new. It was the 90s when I was in university, early 2000s, late 90s kind of thing. And my dad, at that point already, he's so old school. He would say, he would listen to me and he'd just hear me out and exactly what I had to say. And he would say, "Ma, save the bullshit for somebody else." And that would end effectively all conversations regarding that topic forever, because you would never, ever get into that topic again when it's, you can't actually, you're looking for a bit of a battle. You see this with young people too. They just can't come fresh out of a lecture and they want to just get into it, And I think a lot of the stuff that they learn is probably not helpful in their actual life. It's stuff that they'll realize in time. They won't remember that stuff. But I do remember save the bullshit for somebody else, because I'm starting to say it with my own children. Not in exactly those words, but the sentiment behind that is something that is now crept into my life, and I didn't want it. I think I wanted to feel like somehow I was vindicated, as somehow I was right as a child, and I realized that in every scenario I was dead wrong. Certainly with regard to my parents, when they told me something, it was the correct thing, and still by today's standards, whether it's for living or whether it's they come from another world, right? And I think when you're raised in the 30s and 40s, your knowledge is coming from your parents, which is late 1800s, early 1900s. So when people left Italy in the 60s and they were 20, that's where their that's where their everything ended. Their education ended. Their growth ended. They didn't grow with the rest of Italians. They stopped right there, and they came to a new land, and they had to fight for the language. They had to fight for survival. They had to, so people in Italy didn't have to do that at that extent. So they were actually able to change and be malleable with the culture, learn new things, and just sort of understand. What I learned was what my dad taught me, which is basically turn of the century, not this one, the last one, because it's what his parents taught him. And for that, I think I have a very old school ideology, and in many cases, old world kind of ideals. And I think they're timeless. Honestly, I think I wouldn't change anything at this point.
I would add only one more thing, is that they also, their formative years happened during or immediately after the devastation of a world war. So like that's something that they lived and informed how they made life decisions for their families. So, I mean, that's layered in there, obviously, when they're telling you, cut the bullshit for somebody, save the bullshit for somebody else.
Yeah. And, I got a little bit of that feeling also in when I visited Croatia. I don't know if you've ever been to Croatia, but I was there visiting a friend in Hvar, and we were talking to his family, and, everyone was really sort of raw. Aside from many people had like battle wounds, you'd see people in the streets, like people our age would be, cut and healed and cut again, through the face. And one guy I was talking to, he said, when you see your mother, or when you see your grandmother getting shot at from over the hill while she's hanging laundry, it changes you. Right. And that really stuck with me, because I thought to myself, wow, that's in a way how we should be living, with the gratefulness. You have to try things on your own skin, right? But those kind of things, you have to just understand that people have lived it, and just take that advice, right? And just go, it's as if I would have lived this. How can I live with that gratefulness? Right?
You shared with me a wonderful word that I had never heard before, and it's in Italian. You shared it with me in Italian. You said,
immedesimarsi.
Oh my God. I had it ready to go.
Immedesimarsi.
Immedesimarsi. Sì. Yeah. Immedesimarsi.
And immedesimarsi is the act of, given the C is to oneself. So, that means, to see yourself in one's shoes, effectively, or to live in that way. And that's something that came up with me in acting, because I'm using as ifs. I'm not a drug dealer, but it's as if I'm a drug dealer when I'm playing that role. I'm not whatever the case is, whatever the role is, that you're falling into that character, you're sinking into that character. And that was a word, and this is, Italy has, the Italian language has such eloquence and such beautiful words to describe certain things. And immedesimarsi is one of those words that, even many Italians don't use it, but it's so eloquent and beautiful, and it describes something with such tact. And I say that because things of emotion in the Italian language like love and emotional things, they have many ways to describe these things, right? And it's just like, you see yourself in one's shoes is something that we, or like, it's something that we can relate to, but it's not something that we necessarily always practice, right? Certainly by today's in today's day and age.
I'm always fascinated by the experience and the mentality of people who choose acting as a vocation. Because for your work, you need to do it. So in a sense, you have to kind of operationalize that feeling. But I find the actors that we've spoken to and that we've befriended on, especially on this program, they seem to also live it. So my question to you is this something that you naturally lived by, like a value that you lived by and then learned how to adapt that into your vocation? Or is that something that your vocation informed you better?
When you're doing the work as an actor, you are you're pretending or you're acting. You're doing. Acting is to do. You're doing things that one would do in a set of circumstances, right? Everything else that we do is what we do naturally. So we respond honestly and in the moment. We listen. We react. And we react as if we were in fact, the character. Well, no one knows who the character is. The character's you, right? It's you're the character. There's never a time when you're, in my opinion, when you're actually playing a character. Every time you do a role, every one of those, every role you do, that character somehow lies within you. And what people are seeing is a facet of you and who you are. Now that it might have a set of behaviors that are completely different than how you normally behave, which is why, you train for it. And the other thing is that there is an emotional level that we train and strive toward that is greater than what we normally use in life. So, where someone might get upset and they're a 5 out of 10 upset, as an actor, you would push that to 11 or 12. You would explore the boundaries of that part of your personality. You'd push those so that you're able to access various parts of that for different reasons.
So you're exploring something that you're not, but to use your words kind of loosely here, but there's part of you in it. So it helps you to explore. Does it, when you finish your work, quote unquote, like everything to do with that role, and you go back to being you, Antonio, are your limits pushed a little bit more, like your personal limits of exploration? So forget about your work. Does that inform how you push or what your boundaries are going forward? I don't know if I'm asking a question.
You're
correctly.
Asking a great question. I think that, yes, in a way, in that when you are exploring those, you're exploring parts of your personality that you would never bring to 10, but you're bringing it to 10, 4 or 5 days a week. You're stretching that muscle. It's like doing a back bend or doing the splits. You would never do the splits unless you had the ability to. You might go 30%, 40%. Well, the same thing with the facets of your personality and your character. The thing that are really, that make up part of you is your ability to react to what someone says. And you're responding honestly and in the moment. What is invented is you have a set of circumstances that is, that because you know the character, you know the storyline, you know the script, you know where the arc of the character. So that's where things become, in a way, more inventive, but also in a way more rooted, more grounded, because it has to be real for it to look real. The camera will, as you know, you work on camera all the time. The camera will bust you before anything, which means your viewer will call you out before anything. Your viewer will know if for a second you think to yourself during a scene, you think to yourself, yeah, how am I doing? Am I doing a pretty good job? I call it the third eye,
Yeah.
It says that you have
Right.
a third eye just swings around and just looks at you while you're in a scene, and it goes, how you doing? You're doing great. This is going good. That's bad acting. That you can see that a mile away. And now working so much behind the cameras, I'm able to call that out often. I'm able to see that. And as a producer, I don't have the full right to go in and speak to actors as I would if I were a director. However, I do have a really great relationship with actors, and I am able to sometimes whisper a little something in their ear to realign that. And just, even if it's something as simple as really listen, because what they're telling you is going to affect you if you're really listening. If I don't see that effect happening, I know what they're holding on to is the next line. So in many ways, working behind the camera helped me become better on the camera. Unfortunately, working behind the camera has also taken away a lot of my time to work on camera. So it's a catch-22,
But I'm sure it tests your own, that kind of work also tests your own limitations or boundaries for empathy. Like, because what I gathered from what you just told me is like you're in order to bring on the persona, you have to be empathetic. You just have to be.
Absolutely. I think that there's a huge amount of empathy that comes with the work. If you're not empathetic, then you're not actually, empathy is what? It's seeing yourself in someone else's shoes. Exactly what we're talking about. It's recognizing that if you were that person, you would feel a certain way and then reacting off that. So, when I see someone fall, I don't laugh. I go and help them, because if I were in that position, I see that as that person needs some help. I feel like there's a certain kind of, there's a sensitivity training that you do. I don't know if they call it that, but it's just, you're just hypersensitive to many things, even things that people are telling you. You tend to take things more to heart, because words are important. The script is important, right? And if we're not respecting the words, then we're not doing our part as actors.
You also said something to me too in the last conversation. Like we had a nice chat. I really enjoyed that last chat that we had because
Likewise.
It's like you put everything on the table and go, oh my God, I should have spent a day on this. This is amazing. So, because you were saying things like that were very simply put, but not things that people really talk about often because, we're all busy. But you said, I economize too much being with people. And so when you said that, I go, I don't know what that means. So we went into it and you said, when you're into speaking with somebody, when you're into, you said, my whole body gets involved. It's like when you're on these are your words now. When you're on the right path, it's something carnal and that it comes from the deep, it comes from the heart. The mind is not getting in the way. And the body, the quote unquote I put here, the body feeling is what is true. The whole body gets involved when you're in with somebody and not economizing your time with them.
Yeah, it's in fact, I stand behind those words. And I think we got on that because we were talking about, I was speaking with you and, for years I've been speaking with many people, but, when someone is interested in you and your story and you see that, you're able to start getting involved a little deeper because the information you're exchanging is solicited. So we economize so much in our daily, we don't want to take people's time. We don't want to, take up too much of our own time. We want to get off the phone. We got to do things, life gets in the way. But when you set aside, your phone, you set aside time to actually just get involved and start talking to people, that feeling it's carnal. It's something deep. It's something that's you feel in your stomach, and it doesn't really happen every day, but it can happen when you're truly focused on somebody else, and exchanging that information. I think we get little blips of this in life, and we might leave a conversation and go like, I like that person. You know, like I like that person. Why? Why do you like that person? You know, you like that person because they might have asked you some questions about you. You know, okay, well, that's something that I take as well. Maybe ask some questions about other people, and suddenly, you know, you sort of learn something a little deeper. But this is what human beings were all about. We're supposed to exchange all of this information continually. You know, that's how people knew that, you know, about sicknesses. That's how people knew about, you know, people's families and when, you know, someone was, you know, someone passed away or someone was getting married, it would be all word of mouth back in the day. That all went away. Now it's an email and it's in your back on your phone, right? Or it's, you know, it's Facebook or it's social media. But what do you feel? You're like, oh, that person, you know, that person's not well, that person's sick, or that person passed away. And you feel bad, and you know you put your hearts and your you know your prayers and you know your emojis and whatever else, but that's so surface. It feels so surface, and I think that we want to go deeper, but now there's so many walls up. Like you want to make. I still try to make a point of calling people instead of texting. Like we get in this habit of texting, and then when you call, it's like people call me. I pick up. I'm like, hey, you know, it's
shock.
like I'm like, wow. That's cool. Like someone called me, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes me dedicate my attention 100% in that moment. And sometimes if you recognize in your own life, certainly with me, I get to get off the phone. I get off the phone because already my body's being programmed out of that because of everything, you know, this digital world, you know, we're already being programmed out of that. But when I'm forced into it, I actually love it. I desire it. You know, I look for that. And many times I pick up and I call people too. And I know the kind of person I'm calling. When I get sent a voicemail, I don't get picked up on. And other people, they pick up every single time. And I'm like, ooh, this is a person that can connect, you know? And that may be, that may be not 100% for everybody. And maybe people are just busy, but there's something to be said about just picking up a call or answering a door when someone knocks and just connecting with a neighbor, a friend. We're meant to do that. We're social, we're social beings, right?
Well, you also shared another little episode that exemplifies just this. Like it spoke to me because you and I, so before I prompt you to share that again, you and I have spoken a little bit about spending vacations, spending some of our free time in southern Italy. And we like the energy there for reasons A, B, C, D, and F that we can go into or not go into, but most of them are obvious, even for our listeners and viewers. But this one here exemplifies it. Do you remember the neighbor that you spoke to, and then they asked you if you liked a vegetable?
Keep going. Remind me on it.
You don't remember.
Go ahead.
You told the neighbor if there was anything you could do for them, just to ask you is not a problem. And then he asked you if you like rucola. Yeah. This is just a few weeks back. I popped by my buddy's house growing up, my buddy Martin, and we lived very close to each other. We lived, and I still live in the same neighborhood. And I saw his father driving in the car, and I pulled in behind him, and he looked over, and I said, hey, we started chatting or whatever, and he said, I said, if you need anything, let me know, because I'm just a block away, right? And he's older, like all of our parents. And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, you like rucola? And I was like, yeah, I like rucola. And he goes, come in the back. And he started cutting back, got a bag and cut back all this rucola and kale. And he put it all in this bag for me. And I thought to myself, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is what love is all about. This is what family is all about. This is what neighborhoods are all about. This is what relationship is all about. It's about those moments. It's about just the mutual respect you have for someone to ask how they're doing. And then that other person recognizing that, right? And the exchange of something. It could be words. In this case, it wasn't words. It was just simply rucola and kale, And I just thought that was beautiful. We just sat there and chatted for a little while longer, and he cut back we exchanged a few ideas about gardening, and
that's a feeling that I fear that many young people may not get, they don't have the same interests. Like I actually love gardening. I love, relating with people. I love, getting to people on a deeper level. I love connecting. I love all these things, but I feel like a lot of that's going away. What do you think? Do you think that, that it's just going to be a revitalization at some point, or we're just, we're doomed?
That's endearing for most people. Like if you're not a robot, it's hard not to like that little story. A lot of people, including me, I mean, I throw myself into this. We see that as an end game. It's like, yeah, you know what? I want that. When I go on vacation, I want my neighbor. I want the guy I want him to bring me into his vegetable garden. I want to pick fruits with him and make some wine with him. And then it becomes more of an end rather than the beginning of something.
Right.
Like, yeah, that feeling there that you have, if that's a beginning, if that's a way of life you choose to have, so to connect with one-on-one with people, and to show the empathy, to show the care and the love, then you can start asking about what if, like all the what ifs that you ask as an actor, right? Or as anybody who's creating. Because the what if starts with you, that, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it does. And it starts with you. And this is the thing, about culture and why we got into it with the Italian culture, because when you go there, you feel different and you feel like this is where I think I belong. And this affects Italians, but it also affects non-Italians. When you come back, I mean, if your story is positive, you come back going like, I want to go there. I want to go back there. I want to experience that again. In many ways, I feel like also cooking is like that. It's a feeling.
Sure.
It's not always a science. Baking's more a science. You know what I mean? But when you're cooking and you're, like you could be doing simple foods, but it's a feeling you get when you're putting the ingredients in. It's a feeling you get when you're eating it. We're, in Italy, we're all about the food, right? So suddenly you're connected to something that you didn't even know you were connected to. You just know, why do I love this so much? It's a spaghetti aglio olio. It's the simplest thing to make, but why do I want to eat 3 plates of this? It's like anyone can do this, but to do it right is a feeling. Yeah. To do it right, you have to feel that feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I like that. To do it right is a feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I think it's harder for us in many ways that we experience culture in blips like as young people with our families. Yes, we had all of it. And then we got, we went to high school and we started living sort of more Canadian lifestyle, which is great. We love Canada, but, in North America, it's like, I feel like we share many similarities, with Italian Americans as well. But we go back to Italy and we get these little blips of what if this was my life? What if they would have never left? What if this was my first language? What if this was my actual culture? What if I didn't have to leave here? I sat there, I was in, Gallipoli just, last month and I met a couple people on the beach there beside us and we started chatting and, they lived there. They lived right there in front of the beach. And that was their beach. 35 years they've been coming to that beach. And that's all they really did. Home, beach. That's what they knew. That was their sand, effectively. And I was just there that day. And from that one little encounter, I learned about, like they sort of took me into their wing and they told me about all the best restaurants. The best restaurants weren't not the ones with the 5-star reviews. They weren't even the ones that show up on Google. I tried to Google what they were talking about. I couldn't find it. It didn't show up on the map.
The best.
And it was, one, cheap, which was surprising, right? Because you expect to pay who knows how much. And 2, the best food I ever had. So you think to yourself okay, things in life don't have to be costly. They have to be attached. They've got to be rooted. They've got to be centered in something. They shared knowledge that they had garnered over however many years. And they said, yeah, well, there's this place. They first started saying a few places that were kind of touristy. And I said, no, I don't want the touristy places. I don't want the ones that you have to call, 3 days in advance to get a reservation. I don't want those places. And they're like, oh, and there was an understanding there. Like another time I was sitting in Sorrento and I had, the guy at the end of the, in Italy, you go at the end of the meal, they bring out a bottle of grappa and they bring out a bottle of limoncello. And we do the bill and everything. And the guy comes back. He said, "Ma signore, non lo vuoi? You don't want any grappa or limoncello?" And I said, no, non mi piace. Mi piace più la roba fatta in casa.
Stuff made in the home. Yeah. Or homemade. Yeah.
He goes, no, I said, I don't like that. I prefer things that are more made at home because I like my homemade wine, not your uncle's homemade wine growing up. I do it I do it from grapes. I do it the real style, Italian style that my family's they've been passing it down for 800 years. The same recipe. We've been doing it for years, and I continue to do that. The other thing is that when I'm going to some place like Napoli, if I want limoncello, I can get it at the liquor store here. I'm not going to have limoncello from the liquor store here either. He goes, okay, aspetta. He goes back. He pulls out a water bottle that was crushed. Okay, the
Amazing.
One that no one knows put the wine in,
Yep.
And he brings that out and he goes, vieni qua. And he pours me a little shot and I tried it. To this day, I still remember. It was it was just exploding with lemons from his yard, and we connected in that moment. We had a moment where we understood that we both like something that is more. It's more centered. It's more rooted. It's more, it's from a different time. It's a different generation. It's just a different thing. And suddenly you're on a different playing field. They know who you are and what you like, right? That's something that a lot of people don't get to experience, I feel. Right? It's when you look for it, you find it. You really have to be interested.
Yeah. You got to give a shit.
Absolutely.
I'll share one story that's very similar to this. I was in central Italy this past summer, and we were at. I may have mentioned this today. I'm not sure, but I can't stop thinking about this. We were at a restaurant, and it was a restaurant in the middle of the mountains, and it's family run.
Where were you? Abruzzo?
The guy in Abruzzo, in Abruzzo,
yeah, okay.
in Teramo. Literally in the middle of the mountains. Okay. So as soon as we turned the corner, it was my wife's cousin told us to go, and I turned the corner, I go, there's nothing here. And then I thought, as soon as I said there's nothing here, that was my Toronto, that was my North American thing. There's nothing here. Where am I sending it? And then I just switched. I go, oh, there's nothing here, which means there's something here, right? If we're in the middle of nowhere, that's where I want to eat. So anyway, we fast forward, sit down, and the owner's in his early 60s, and he's lived there all his life. And we got to know each other. And while we were getting to know each other, the first plate he put down was meats and cheeses to start. And then I checked the pecorino. It's pecorino cheese. And I started to taste it. And he came, he asked, how is it? And I turned around to him. I said, this is one of the best pecorino cheese I've ever had. Just want to tell you that. And he goes,
Buon gustaio.
if you like that? Yeah. So I'm getting goosebumps here because his face completely changed. He goes, oh, this guy cares. Pelle d'oca.
Pelle d'oca. Oh my God.
I told him this. He gave me this face, and he was like, it was like a little bit of a connection. I go, okay, this is weird, right? He just, his eyes weren't watering, but it felt like they could. And he says, if you like that, I'm going to bring you our reserve. I said, no, you don't have to. Don't worry. I'm not asking for anything else. He goes, doesn't matter. He brought out a little plate with little 4 pieces of randomly cut cheese, and that's pecorino. He says, try it. So I had it. I go, this is the best I've ever had. He goes, I said, who made that? He goes, my brother-in-law. Just like that. My brother-in-law. There's no label. There's no cantina. My brother-in-law. I said, this is incredible. I'm coming back just for this. He says, well, Luciano, then I'm going to show you other things. So the whole lunch became an exploration of his life
Yeah.
And what he did for these plates and these liqueurs and going up to the mountains with sandwiches and picking these wild berries for the drink that he was offering us that we didn't order.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. It's not a meal. Like you said, it was perfect. I wrote it down. It matters because it's attached. Like the experience is attached. It's rooted in something.
Yeah. Yes. It has roots. And that's what changes it. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I feel like many like they say that people from, Italians they're, for the most part, they're good people. If you ask for directions, they'll tell you where to go north of Rome, right? Mm-hmm. They'll tell you how to get there. In Rome, they'll show you. So follow me, right? Come behind me. I'm going that way. Follow me. And then south of Rome, they'll say, open the door. Let's go. I'll take you. And they sit in the car. This actually happened to me in Toronto, actually. I went up to, what's the area? Woodbridge? I was there during Bomb Girls. And everyone said, I was going up on College Street. My dad says, go up on College Street, lots of Italians. I go up there, I'm looking around, no Italians. I'm going like, where are all the Italians? Like I wanted to get some good pizza. I wanted to get this. Couldn't find any Italians there. It was mainly now more Portuguese, more like it was changing over at that time, right? And there was some historic Italians, but it was very much mixed. He said, if you want Italians, you got to go to Woodbridge. Woodbridge. Okay. Well, one day I rent a car. I go up to Woodbridge. I'm driving around. I don't see any Italians. Driving through. It was raining that day. Driving through. I see a couple of Fiats and Alfa Romeos, and maybe some, historic Italians still live here. And I pull up to this one guy. He's walking with an umbrella. I said, Signore, per il centro. Mi guarda, he looks like this. He looks at me like this. And I was like, see, he doesn't understand, right? Keeps on walking a little bit. And I'm like, kind of just like, okay, well, he looked at me, but he didn't say anything. So maybe he's not, see, there's no Italians here. And then he goes, stops for a second. He goes, ma cosa cerchi? What are you looking for? And I said, cercavo il centro, veramente volevo sapere dove si può prendere un buon caffè. I said, well, I'm looking for the center, I just want to find out where I can get a good coffee. And he goes, walks up to the car, buon caffè? I said, yeah. Walks around, opens the car, sits inside it. I said, I'm just sitting there like, okay, this is like a 75-year-old man, right? I'm like, okay. And he goes, vabbè, ti ci porto. I'll take you. I go, okay, sure, no problem. He's maybe going the same direction. He goes, turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right. And suddenly we pull up and I go, signore, this non è il centro questo. Dove siamo? This is not the center. Where are we? And he goes, stai cercando un buon caffè? You want a good coffee? Questa è casa mia. This is my house.
Amazing.
And he goes in, opens the door. Maria, abbiamo un ospite. Faccio un caffè.
Amazing.
And then he pulled out all his albums. All the photos of when he moved to Toronto. All what his family does back home, and we would exchange these. We exchanged a bunch of stories, and we had coffee and we had lunch that day, and it was amazing. And then for years we sent Christmas cards to each other, and one day they stopped, and that was it. But I thought to myself, this is what life is all about. Not being afraid to hold someone's hand and say, I'm going to get you the best coffee in this whole area. Ti ci porta il professore di Napoli. You want the best coffee. This is where you got to have, and this is what I do with my friends when they come to Italy. I'm like, you want the best porchetta sandwich? Come, follow me. This is the best you're ever going to get in the world. Okay? Full stop. And you share that experience. You're not going to get that from, Reddit or from Google necessarily. You have to share that information with people and then they pass it forward,
So that's something that we're willing to accept when we go to other places around the world, except for the places where we live. Like we would never do that living in our own place, like in the modern world. I mean, this is what I'm saying. we find it creepy. Like, well, no, this guy, he's not getting in my car. But if you just let yourself feel the attachment, like I could see that. I mean, that's life changing too, right?
Mm. Yeah,
it is life changing because it's a beautiful interruption to your scattered life, to your chaotic life, to your cell phone and back pocket life. It's the opposite.
Yeah. And, in all that time, I've said, I didn't know this guy. I didn't know his family.
Sure.
But I remember the photos of his hometown that he showed me like it was yesterday. This is over 10 years ago now. Like it was yesterday. I remember every bit of what he showed me. He took me in the back. Showed me his tomatoes, where he was growing them. And everyone's growing them in these, these wild, pots that basically it's like found materials. You know what I mean? It's like, this is this like something that, there's these containers, right? And the tomatoes are incredible. They take pride in that, right? And I don't think he felt like he was wasting my time because he knew that it was deeper. He knew that there was something, that I was looking for something more, right? And so at that point, you're not wasting someone's time.
Well, why is art important for you, or important to you?
I mean, art in general, or art as it pertains to my life? I mean,
however you define it.
I mean, I jokingly say, I don't wish art on my, artistic endeavors on my children for anything. I'd rather they just become professionals. But there with art comes a certain amount of pain, and I think that's the voice that speaks when I think about art. There's a certain amount of putting everything on the line when you embrace an artistic lifestyle. And that's right from your education, because you're now spending 4 years of your life to learn how to do something very specific, of which you have absolutely no control over later on in life. You as an artist, you may feel you're good, but maybe other people don't respect that your artistic abilities in the same way that you might. You're always having to wait for someone else to hire you, to say that you're good enough. So you're in many ways, no matter how hard you want something, if you want to start a business as you've started, you can start it. It requires time. It requires willpower. It requires in some cases finances. It requires, just dedication. All of those things you could have as an artist, but you may never work. So there's a certain amount of pouring out of one's soul that is required. I learned this actually in Italy. I had the opportunity to do Dancing with the Stars, and it was in like 2006 after my show aired, and I was offered the experience, and I thought, why not? Let's do it. Let's see what this dancing is all about, right? How hard could it be? And what I realized that, ultimately, dancers will dance their entire life without an idea of ever considering making money for it. They just dance, right? So it's motivating in a way that's deeper than a financial motivation. It's something that your heart is requiring, or your soul is requiring. You hear it, you feel it in your body, and you're moving, right? And to move in a way that someone might deem that to be an accurate or good movement, it takes years. Doesn't take weeks, doesn't take months. And we would do things, I would rehearse things 5 hours a day, certain dances for every day of the week. And we would have performance on Saturday. And you would not be anywhere near the perfection of one simple hand movement. You could spend 10 years on the movement of a hand to make it absolutely perfect. And there's not an idea of making money behind it. Well, what drives people, right? What drives people is not that passion most of the time. But what drives dancers most of the time is that passion. I see it in my daughter. Oh, she loves to dance. She wants to go to ballet. She wants to do hip hop. She wants to do tap. She loves it. We lose that at a certain point. You know, we don't all just dance for the rest of our lives. But that's those things that we do and we love as children are the things that, you know, we drop because we have no time for. But technically, they're the things that we really should be making the time for because it's the only true link that we have to our heart and our deeper self at a certain point. Right? It's like, you know, if you played soccer because you loved it, you should still play it. You play guitar because you love it, continue to play it. You know, just lose the idea of making money at something, right? As an adult, you're not gonna quit your day job and become a rock star. That may happen, but when you go looking for it, what I found is the more you look for it, the financial value of something, you lose the value, the emotive value of it, and it's some kind of an exchange. As dancers, you just forget about any of that and you're just connecting to the beat, connecting to yourself. It's your stomach, it's your legs, you feel it low in your body. You know what I'm saying? That's where you want it to be. Get out of your head, get out of how do I look and start feeling it in your body. Now I'm by no way a dancer, but this is what I recognized as, living as if I were a dancer in that period and understanding dance is to perform live because that's what you're doing. You're trying to get the best understanding you can during the week for a live performance, for a 2-minute live performance on Saturday. You were doing the what if, yeah. And it was one of the most artistic and incredible experiences I've ever had, which is saying a lot coming from acting because you get so many roles and so many things. You're constantly involved, but it was just maybe another way to look at it. You know what I mean?
I guess your body is also part of your imaginative position, your imaginative desires. Because as a dancer, your body is the tool for your imagination, literally.
Absolutely. And
we gotta have a dancer on the
podcast. You should. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, you should. Absolutely. I mean, it's not only mind or body; it's that connection. What makes a good performer. When I see performances and I see, we had performances in the 80s, like Van Halen, they'd have a hand up on the speaker, like singing to the crowd and, tongue out, and you're performing for somebody. And then you had this other generation of performers, singer-songwriters that were actually living an experience while reciting. Well, it's not reciting because that gives the idea of an act. It was living the experience, performing the experience while reliving it.
Like a Johnny Cash.
And when that happened, there was a magic because it gave us this opportunity to kind of peek into someone's home. And if you lived in England ever in your life, or you lived in certain places in Italy, certainly in Europe, as you're walking down the road, you can actually peer in someone's home. London is big on this because there's homes below. You can actually see people living their life below the road level. Like you can see it. And that kind of voyeuristic idea where you sort of jump into that just for a second, just to take a minute to what's going on there is interesting to watch. It's very interesting to watch. You could watch someone effectively for hours just doing regular household things when they don't know you're watching. Right? Because it's the anticipation of what's coming next. What do I get to see? Right?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
sure.
Much like acting, we step into that life and we perform. People like to watch because they want to see what happens next. You don't even need to say anything. Singer-songwriters, same thing. They're on a stage. When they're performing, again, performing is not a good word. When they're reliving that experience and you can see them, they're living the experience through pictures in their mind and they're performing from within. That becomes an incredible performance on the outside without the need to, perform to the crowd, to be performative. You don't need to be performative. You need to live an experience and relive that experience. This comes a lot of the time, and I wrote a lot of songs in my day. I played in bands and such. And whenever I found that key, I always found that people said, well, I really like that song. Because I just didn't write it for melody. I wrote it because it was a deeper connection somewhere. It had meaning to me in a deeper way. When it came out, you could hear the cry, and that's not to sound like it's a vocalism, but you can hear the earnest quality of that. That's what makes, for me, that's what makes performance interesting to watch, whether it's acting, whether it's stage performances, whether it's singer-songwriters, whether it's rock and roll. I want to see someone live an experience. I want that voyeuristic moment where I'm able to just peer into their mind and relive or live for the first time an experience that they're reliving.
Curiosity must play a really important part in this, because if you're waiting for the next moment, it means that it's got you engaged with your curiosities.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, how is it, like, there isn't anything deeper than that, right? If we're curious about something and it creates an attachment, something profound, I mean, isn't that what creating is?
Yeah, it is. And to be curious, I never actually thought about it until you just said that, but to be curious that's the missing link. And I think we discussed last time we spoke that for me, it's interesting to see how curious you are about learning about me and other people. You're very curious. You want to know what's going on. That makes it interesting, not only to me, but to other people as well, right? It's interesting, that lifestyle for people who, I don't know how everyone lives. I don't know where people put things in their cupboards in their kitchen. But if you ever went to a friend's house and said, I just want to grab a fork, and you open it up and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see a tape drawer with, these things here. Or you open another one, you're like, oh, I was expecting to find forks, but suddenly you're confronted with this new reality. So why would they put that there? Well, maybe that's the best way, right? But it's interesting metaphor. It's interesting just to pull those drawers and just see what's going on in there, right? So that's
a great metaphor.
And that was also, that curiosity is the same thing that we're talking about with my friend's dad with the rucola. It's like, I was curious about him, how he's doing, and he was giving me something. It's an exchange, right? So you're curious about me. We're having this relationship where we're able to discuss things. We have a deeper relationship because of it. It's no longer surface, right? And I don't, like we met for a minute 10 or 12 years ago. And, like we could easily forget about that, but you didn't. You remembered and you reached back out. And that to me was curious. I was like, in your mind, you remembered a moment in time that we had met and you reached back out. That to me was the most important thing that day. Because that's where the connection was. The meaning was there. The deeper meaning was there.
Yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah, because I guess I did feel like we could have a conversation like this when we met. Like we met, I think, through a friend of yours. I remember a soccer game, something like that.
Yes.
I was there with a couple of buddies, and you were there with a buddy, and then we just kind of struck up conversation because we were standing all near each other.
Yeah,
and it was just like very casual, and it was very direct. It was something very recognizable to me. Yeah. But I don't remember even what we talked about.
I don't remember either. I mean, like Europeans, I feel like Europeans, there's a cultural thing that we left, and back home, whether it's Spain, Portugal, England, maybe England a little bit less from my experience there, but in a lot of countries in Europe, certainly the Latin countries, especially, I just find that it's very easy to connect. It's easier to connect when you want to, like when I was in Portugal, I had the same treatment in Portugal that I did in Italy. They didn't know what I was talking about, but they knew that I was interested, and they knew I was curious about certain things. And that is a feeling, right? Spain, same. Wherever I travel to, Morocco, same, France, same, Tunisia, exactly the same. And I've got incredible Tunisian friends, Moroccan friends. That's not my culture growing up, but it's the relationship is there because the common interest exists to continue to get to know each other on a deeper level, to connect on things that are in many ways carnal, primal, We have a deeper understanding, a deeper sensibility. We're not there trying to, we're not petitioning or raging against the machine. We're there connecting with each other. Right?
Sure. Well, in the same way a dancer does, right?
Absolutely.
Carnally, like with the body and the imagination and the desire and everything. Like everything is there shown to you physically.
You see people when they're dancing. When they're dancing, you have a look, and just recognize why you want to watch that more. This came up in when I was shooting my series in Italy. We were shooting down in Puglia, and there was a troupe there that were doing the pizzicata. It's the dance of the tarantula. And
tarantella.
So we spent some time down in Puglia, and I was able to watch the tarantella from this dance is tamburalisti. They do the tambourine. It's and you see the magic of these people dancing on the beach, and they've got the cloth, and they're just locked in eyes, and they're just dancing, and sand is kicking up, and it's just so beautiful. And you go online and you watch it online and you're like, I kind of see what they're talking about, but it's not the same. When you see it and you're there and you see it, people that are doing it and they're connected and they're live, you feel like you've been bit by the tarantula. You feel like you want to dance. You feel like it's so beautiful to watch. So what is it? When those movements are connected and they're rooted in something deeper, it becomes incredibly attractive, right?
Yeah.
It's super attractive.
Quick note. Last year I was in Spain, and we were in. I always forget where they have the flamenco.
Oh yeah,
what's the city in Spain? In southern Spain.
But it's not Barcelona.
No, it's not Barcelona.
Madrid,
Valencia?
Barcelona, Valencia. Okay, go ahead.
No, it'll come to me. Sevilla.
Right? Yeah.
Never interested in seeing one of those dances. I said, you know what, since we're here, let's do it. So we bought some tickets, we went, and it was very close up. And I think it was flamenco dancing. It was but an hour, and it was intense. It was so intense, it was uncomfortable because it felt really personal.
Yes.
But it was good. It cut through.
Yeah, when things are deeply personal, they become very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah, but a little bit of discomfort in there. It's like, it's like you feel like you could be that person on the stage, right? But you're just not. You're not good enough, but you know that it's in you. It's like watching. When you go to the theater, right? Like when you go to live theater and when you go to a live concert, it's a different feeling for similar reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like how you said that there's this discomfort, and I wonder if I know the exact feeling you're talking about, because when someone is deeply personal around you and you're a witness to that, it is uncomfortable. Even if someone they're sharing deeply personal information, it can be comfortable. Or if they're talking about they're talking to you about you is deeply personal, that's also uncomfortable. There's a lot of things that but I think ultimately, in the way that you had said, maybe that's just because culturally, we in Canada aren't used to the hugs and the kisses that we are used to in Italy. over there
Yeah,
were
sure.
just always they're always in your face. The guys are locking arms with you, and they're just always, it's kisses, and it's just so much love all the time. And that is, North Americans are not used to that. Right.
No.
And even Italians, like I go to Italy often, but even the last time I went, they went for the kiss, and I was like, oh, I went to the wrong side, and it felt weird. Sometimes I just do the hug, and it was just like, it was kind of a weird thing where it's like,
going
I just
to the
have
wrong
to know.
side. Yeah.
I know. You put the hand out, you go to this side, you go to that side. That's what everyone does. That's it.
Yeah.
But it was having people in your space again becomes, it's a comfort thing. It's like, how close do I want this person?
Yeah.
Right. And you forget that that's what you need. You don't know you need it, but you need it because it feels good.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what you need. That's what you needed as a kid. You needed hugs as a kid.
Yeah.
Like every child needs that. Like
it's not
all we are.
understood.
We're just old. No, well, yeah. Maybe it's not understood. I think it's because it's also taught out of us. Like we're all just older kids.
Yeah.
Like it's all we are. I mean, that's all we should be, really. Because going back to when you talked to me, it's like maybe last question or last comment on this, but you talked to me about training for acting, and it was like going back to when you learned how to ask questions as a kid, and then you used your son as an example. Your son is always asking you how, like he doesn't stop asking how.
He says
adults find that annoying. Is it?
Yeah. And it's not in the classic sort of way that a child might ask why. The how he says is because he doesn't recognize that, he doesn't recognize how I would have gotten that ability. Like how did you get to that? How did you get to that level? Right. And he's shocked that his old dad, can get to level, 120 on Tetris, or can get to, can do certain things. How do you know how to do that? And even as early as this morning, is his birthday today. And, he asked me how again. I made something special for him, and he goes, how? And I said, buddy, you're going to know how as well. When you get to a certain age, you'll be interested in things, you'll be trying things, and you'll just know how. And he says, I love how you know how to do all those things. And I said, hey man, I said, you're better than me in a lot of things. And he goes, no, Dad. He goes, you have way more experience than I do.
Yeah. You're still a hero to him. Yeah. Keep that. Keep that for as long as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Antonio, I really enjoyed this chat. Let's have a part 2, man. Let's continue this. I think there's a lot more here we can talk about.
I would love to, Luciano. You honestly, like this, the space you've given and the questions you've asked, and this relationship it feels really good, and I'd love to discuss further.
That's awesome. Okay, so then I had a couple more questions. I'll wait till part 2 to ask those, and I'm sure I'm going to have more.
Let's do it. Anytime.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Ciao, Luciano.